Okay, time for another lesson. So today I want to talk about marketing your exterior cleaning business. So I hear this a lot. You need to make 10x on your marketing. People say this a lot. They say you should only be spending 10% of your revenue on marketing. I will tell you right now, that is a lie. It's because they don't want you to market. They don't want They don't want you to outmarket them. They don't want you to outspend them. So what I'm trying to say is, okay, so let's look at an example. A moving company, right? In a moving company, and I just bought a moving company, so I've been thinking about this a lot. In a moving company, you're basically marketing to get a customer like once, maybe twice in their entire life, right? And maybe they'll get give you a referral to their family members, right? So in a moving company, everything is depending on making a profit on the first job. And maybe you get a referral. Wait, how do you spell referral? Guys, I dropped out of high school. Is there two F's? If I can start a business, anyone can start a business. Okay, so think about this. If you own a moving company and you're running Google ads, you have to make a return on your Google ads on the first job, right? That is not the case at all with exterior cleaning. There's a few different reasons for it. So when I first started my business, okay, I opened up Google Ads and I put in all my keywords that I want to advertise for. So when someone types it in on Google, I pop up at the very top, right? And I spent, I think, like $300 like the first week that I ran Google Ads. So $300, and I only booked like $500 of work from that, okay? $300 to $500. And I was like, wow, everybody says Google Ads doesn't work. It's too expensive. And I was like, yeah, they're right. It is too expensive. I'm not going to make any profit. 500 minus the 300 is only 200. So after the marketing expense, there's $200 left over. And then there's the labor cost. So to do a $500 job, that's probably about maybe 4 hours of labor. 4 hours of labor at $25 an hour, that's $100. Take away $100 for the labor. Then you have a bunch of other little expenses, right? So those are going to add up a bunch, and this is basically going to cancel out. You're going to make zero. You're going to make zero off of Google Ads. Everybody says that you're just going to barely break even. But that's not the case at all. So if I go back into my CRM and I run a report from the first time I ran Google Ads, let's say I spent $1,000 a month for the first 6 months of my Google Ads. Those have basically made 6 times on my money now, because those are repeat customers that keep coming back, and they also refer people more often. So if I look at that $300 that I spent back then and I look at it big picture, and I actually think about how much has that $300 made me since that first $500, or including that $500, that's probably actually made $500 the first time, right? Then one of those customers, let's say there was 2 jobs here for $250 that made $500. One of those customers referred me to their friend. So that $500 also splits off into their friend who also spent $500. And then this one repeats later. They come back for, one of these customers comes back for another $250. And then this one refers somebody too. This one's another $600. And then 2 years later, they get me to do the same service again. Except it's not as dirty this time because it was done 2 years ago. So now it's only $400. And you see how this works. Now we're counting all this. We're counting all this revenue. 5, 6, 7, 50, 750 plus. I'm not going to do all the math. You get the point. You get the point that this is a big return on $300, right? That's not how that works with a lot of businesses. The moving business, you spend $300, you better be making $2,000 revenue from that on the first job, right? And having like even a 6x return on something like Google Ads, that's still really amazing. It doesn't have to be 10x. You got to think about the long term. You got to think about the big picture and how this snowball grows over time. This is a really big deal in this industry. Is you have to be willing to spend a lot of money on marketing. And if you do that from the very beginning, it will snowball faster and faster and faster. And a lot of companies don't grow as quickly as they could because they're just relying on just purely referrals and just purely, their Google My Business, or, they maybe also they don't do email marketing. They don't remarket to those customers. So they're not even thinking about repeat business. They're not doing a good job on the first time. And so people aren't hiring them again. They're just trying to make a quick buck on the first job. So what happens is, if you actually do a good job, and you market to them again, market to existing customers, custies. And also, if you have multiple different services, these three things create a synergy. All right? They create a synergy where you can basically spend as much as you want on marketing and you will eventually get a pretty damn good return on it. You can spend whatever number you think you can spend on marketing, double it, and just give it a try. Just give it a try for like 2 months and then look back and count up how much revenue you've actually made from that marketing. And at the very worst, you will have at least broken even within 2 months. And then you have to think about the long term. That's just broke even right now, but in the future, how much more is that going to be? Like, for example, let me look at like January, like early January. Right now it's almost the end of January, but in the first week of January, I spent probably $4,000 or maybe $5,000 a week for the first 2 weeks of January. So I spent $10K, and that was in 2 weeks. And I booked within those 2 weeks about, I think it turned into 9K. So I actually made less in revenue, 9K, than I spent on the ads. So that feels like a failure at first, right? But then now it's the 27th or 28th of January, and this has actually grown to like 25K. And that's a 2.5x. Oh my God, that's so bad. I cannot write for the life of me. So 2.5x on my marketing, and that's after 30 days, like a 30-day window. So like it only took another 2 weeks before more of those quotes actually converted to real jobs. And then even later on, some of those people who I gave a quote to, say like 2 months from now, some of those people that we quoted in January will book too. And maybe this will grow to 3x. And then maybe 20% of those customers become repeat customers. But maybe they spend even more the next time, right? So now it becomes 4x. And then years down the road, these people are trickling in. They're still calling back to get more services because they remember us. They remember that we did a good job, etc., etc. We send them emails. We send them texts. We call them. We say, hey, what's up? Do you need any more services? And they say, oh, yeah, actually, I do. So you got to think about the big picture of everything. If you do a good job the first time, if you market to them again, you call them back, you ask them what they want, what they need, and you really build a relationship with these people, they will pay for your ads 10x eventually. So you can't be thinking about, I need to make 10x on this right now. You're not a moving business, you're an exterior cleaning business with multiple different services, and this is a big one. The more services you have, the more this works. The more you can spend on advertising, and the more flexibility you have. So let's say you have a business that's just gutter cleaning, right? So your name is Bob. Bob's Gutter Cleaning. And to acquire a customer through Google Ads, you have to spend $150. And your average job size is, let's say, $300, okay? So you have to spend 150 to make 300. And that's still already decent, right? That still can become a repeat customer. Say 20% of your customers become repeat customers. You'll still have that snowball effect. It just won't be crazy. But now let's say Bob adds gutter repairs. And now when he runs ads for gutter cleaning and somebody calls him and they say, hey, I need my gutters cleaned, but also I noticed there's a little leak on the corner. Can you seal that? And before he would say, no, I just do the gutter cleaning. That's it, just gutter cleaning. But now he says, yeah, we can help with that too. It'll be an extra $150. Now he's making $450 from $150. Now let's say he adds another service. Let's say I'm already up on the roof. All I need is a pump up sprayer and I can spray some bleach on this roof and I can actually make this, I can turn this lead into a $1,450 job. Now he's making a bigger and bigger return on his ad spend. So this is the most important thing about Google Ads and any kind of marketing is if you offer enough services where you can cross-sell, you can basically spend as much as you want on marketing and you'll always make a return. So don't listen to people who say, oh no, you need to be extremely niche, you need to focus on one service and be the expert at it. Honestly, that doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense at all because it's not that hard to learn how to clean a roof, to spray bleach on it. A lot of customers just want a one-stop shop that will do everything properly, right? They still do a good job, but they want to get everything done all at once by the same company. They don't want to have to pay extra to have someone come back and forth and then another company come and look at it and give them a quote, and they don't want to deal with a bunch of different companies. So really focus on finding ways to increase your average job revenue. And then that will also increase your referrals. It will increase the rate that customers come back, but you still have to do a good job. Don't forget that. That's all for this lesson. Thank you. Hey, before you go, you got to join my school community. I'll be talking about so many more things like this. Check it out in the link below. I better see you there.